Chapter 30, Deathbed. While still living in Manhattan, Vic in 108 recorded Songs of Separation at the Don Fury Studios. Available with each album was a 40-page word song pamphlet that described each song, its formation, and artistic intention. Several things caught my eye. The picture for the song Solitary were images of Vic's guitar smashed and broken. The poor thing was mutilated and its jagged raw parts were clearly menacing. Deathbed was first written for and performed by Inside Out. The lyrics were essentially the same, but the performance featured an excessively aggressive guitar line that overpowered the lyrics. And that's in the Inside Out version. The 108 version was far superior, done in a more trippy style. With the 108 version, you could hear the lyrics and even through the screaming, feel the emotion. Here's what Vic wrote about Deathbed. I remember my grandfather. I was pretty young when he died. The exact age escapes me. He was so cool. There's nothing I didn't like about him. He was fun, nice to people, and he ate and drank with gusto. He even made his own Italian wine in the basement. Okay, he drank a bit much, but I didn't care. I loved him. It was Christmas time when the phone rang and my mother started crying down the hall. We drove 20 minutes to Grandma's house in Deer Park, where Grandma was flipping. Everything was hellish. The ambulance already left. He was in the hospital. In the waiting room, I was waiting with stupid, ugly, dumb waiting room magazines, waiting. Then a nurse led us down the hall. A white doctor's office. I'm sorry, he said. I was young, but old enough to feel. And the Long Island Funeral Home? No, was it Long Island? Yes, but not Holbrook. I have pictures from those days. My face was a lot less angry then, soft, round, and pretty innocent. In some ways, I kind of miss it. As a small boy dressed in a black suit with a headache, dizzy, I stood before his coffin and looked in. There was only motionlessness and the makeup I wished they'd never put on. I returned to my seat, remembering the way he gave everyone funny Italian nicknames. Such a loud, playful voice those lips once spoke. Such deep joviality that mouth once laughed. But now there is only motionlessness. Those eyes once cried, but now there's only motionlessness. Motionlessness. The same jet black greased hair, the same big nose, the same calloused hands of a furniture builder, the same person I loved, the same, but so different. Your body was there, but you were not. Your body was right there, but you were not. He is not. I am not this body. The funeral is long finished, but your lesson will not be forgotten, Grandpa. Now about the music. The quiet section are the thoughts sung within my internal mind. The loud parts portray the heaviness of the external situation at the hospital and funeral. Experiencing all this, I drifted from internal questions to external reality. The quiet and loud parts alternate in the same way. The break part is me sitting at the funeral, as the intense truth gradually entered my head, quiet at first, then bounding off the walls of my mind. The ending riff is my promise not to forget his lesson. Lyrics. I remember when you cried, with your eyes on fire, with the gale in your lungs, screamed your throat red, but now it's getting colder. What happened to you? You're on your deathbed. I remember when you laughed with the sunlight on your lips, sun rising high on your morning smile, but you're not waking up this time, breathless cries over lifeless eyes. Your body is here, but you are not. That thing that screamed with me and dreamed with me, that thing that laughed with me and cried with me, that same thing lies before me on this deathbed. But where are you? You're not on your deathbed. I always liked Vic's poetry, but this peek behind the curtain of creation was moving. I immediately showed it to Linda. After reading the account, she turned to me. I didn't know this song was about my dad. Neither did I said. I liked the music, but I didn't know what it meant. Linda read it again and held the paper close to her, as though she could absorb some energy from it. I'm going to frame this and put it next to the picture of my dad, one of him in uniform. And with that, off we went to Aaron Brothers in search of the perfect picture frame. That evening we went to dinner at Carver's in town. While waiting to be seated, we started what would be a long conversation about the significance of deathbed. How old was Vic when Dan died, I asked. 13. 13, huh? I guess that's a pretty tender age. No age is good for death. Linda shoots me that you're an idiot look. I wonder if he's gotten past it yet. I sure haven't. Linda's tone and topic closed for now. I took it the hint. I exercise almost every morning, usually by walking or running. It's a good time for contemplation. For a week, my attention always returned to Deathbed. Among the considerable commotion of Grandpa Dan's death, I forgot that he and Vic had a special bond. After the death, Grandpa Leo, my dad, tried to fill the hole, but it was an impossible task. I ignored Vic's needs and favored my wife's instead. He was young and strong after all. My dad told me that Vic was hurting and needed more attention, even thinking he was suicidal. He wasn't. I responded with something superficial and failed to understand the intensity of Vic's sorrow. Now it has become clear that Vic was consumed by the concept of life and death. His vegetarianism was rooted in his respect for other life regardless of its form. His grandfather's unexpected disappearance left both a huge gap in his life and planted a burning question. Surely the flames of youthful anger were fanned by life's apparent capricious injustice. Why would such a good man suffer such fate? What could he have ever done that would have offended the gods so much? I wonder about fate. Was it just an accident that the hardcore music scene reinforced vegetarianism and provided an outlet for his anger? Just an accident that some Krishna followers were also good, or at least popular musicians? Did the novelty of Hindu culture provide a fresh canvas on which to start painting his life anew? A canvas where his past can be redrawn in softer colors, where the future is not dictated by the past. Why were his wounds still so raw and so vulnerable? It was Saturday night, and Linda and I were sitting in the family room watching TV, but mostly just waiting for the clock to roll around to Saturday Night Live. We started to talk to Deathbed again. I turned the TV off and told Linda about my list of questions. I've been thinking, too. I think it was my fault, Linda distressed. Don't be silly. You didn't do anything. It's exactly the problem. I was so consumed with my loss I didn't see my own son's need. No, that's not it. We talked to him about it a couple of times. Grandpa Lee even tried to fill Dan's shoes with Vic. And did it work? Linda was agitated that I wouldn't accept her confession. Did Grandpa Leo succeed? No, because Vic didn't want to work, I offered. Exactly. He wanted us. He wanted me. He needed his mom. And I was busy crying in a corner. I had nothing. She was right that we could have, should have gotten Vic more support. That's the power of hindsight. In real life, it's oh so difficult to know what's the true priority. And it's not like we didn't try. We surely did. It was 11 years later, and we're still trying. Sunday morning, Vic called and asked to borrow my guitar. His guitar got smashed while they were photographing the cover of the song The Separation album. I had a Les Paul Studio Electric. It was a heavy and had a purple sunburst centered on the pickups. A beauty that I had since Holbrook days back in '85. It had a great sound that was really easy to play. Why did Vic want something that looks so completely opposite of his BC Rich Bitch? That was a true war axe. I never got a straight answer, just that he'd like to use it. So I parted with it for the greater good. If nothing else, something of mine would be with Vic, so he'd be reminded of us a little bit each time he played. And I get to buy a new guitar, a Gibson ES-135. In October of '95, when we toured Europe, by now Vic's health had deteriorated somewhat and he needed assistance with his asthma. For this tour through Europe and India, I bought Vic a subscription to a universal health plan that gave him a health insurance card. The idea was that with this card he wouldn't be denied treatment, even if he couldn't afford to pay the bill on the spot. Of course, most of the places he got sick were places where the card was not accepted. I told him that when arriving in a new town, go directly to the local doctor and present the card to find out if they would honor it. If not, continue searching for a doctor who would. We also opened and funded a checking account so that during his travels he'd be able to purchase absolute necessities. But, in a letter from him, I tried to pay at least some of my computer bill, but I could not find the checks for the account that you opened for me. Is there anything I can do now? Hope you're all well and had a nice trip back from Chicago. Apparently this trip was a financial failure, as Vic ended up in Germany without enough money to come home. Instead of asking us to foot the bill, he sold all of his musical equipment. This would not have bothered me, except that some of the equipment included my Les Paul. When I found out, I remember exactly how I did. I was understandably unhappy. It's funny that he doesn't have any attachments to the material world, but I do. And it was my guitar and not his to sell. And I remember the first time I bought him a guitar, the Takamine bass, when he was a teenager. He had liked my choice then and rejected it without consideration of how I'd feel. Is this what it means to live in the moment? To be concerned only for what's happening now? I like the old ways better.